morning. Some may say it's from Mars, some may call it cheese sauce. It's a morning. You can put it in a lasagna tin, make it thick or thin, and do it your way. When you make bechamel and you add cheese as well, it's a morning.
You're listening to Rebecca Bowen with Quite a Stir on Radio Cardiff 98.7 FM.
Good evening, you're listening to Quite a Stir with Rebecca Bowen. Happy New Year to all our devoted listeners. It's good to be back, and what a way to start the new year with the one and only Abby Reader, a dairy farmer and Deputy President of NFU Cymru, talking about the real challenges in the food industry, how farming is changing and why what we eat matters more than ever. Welcome to the show, Abby.
Oh, thanks very much, Rebecca. Absolutely delighted to be here.
Thank you. This week we go beyond the supermarket shelves and into the world of Welsh farming. Dairy farmers are hit hard by falling milk prices. Average farm gate returns are reportedly below production costs. Many face significant losses each month, and there are fears that continued low prices could force some farms to close, whilst overall production costs remain high, including feed, fertiliser, fuel, energy, labour, unpredictable weather conditions. They are increasingly impacting forage quality and farm operations, which raises costs and complicates planning. What are the biggest challenges dairy farmers in Wales are facing now, and how do we combat those?
Ooh, well, it's a really good starter question, isn't it? What challenges are dairy farmers facing? If you'd asked me that just before Christmas, I would have said inheritance tax.
Yes.
Absolutely enormous, and I think very difficult for a lot of people to understand. But essentially, dairy farms, like any other farm, don't have cash in the bank. So if on the death of a family member, that farm is suddenly going to be inherited by the next generation, in order to be able to pay the inheritance tax, it would probably lead to the breakup of the family farm, and that would essentially make many farming businesses who are there to produce food for us non-viable. If suddenly you know that your farm might be 100 acres one day, 200 the next, and then back down to 50 the next, it's really, really hard to plan. Hence the reason there was special dispensation for agricultural businesses. But the good news is, without getting too into the nitty-gritty, that just before Christmas, the Prime Minister did admit that it was going to be incredibly damaging, and they have made a change. And that's for all businesses, all family businesses, not just farms, but really, really welcome. And for me personally, I didn't know whether I would have a farm in the next 2 or 3 years because of the changes. So, it just made Christmas a whole lot better.
That's good. In regards to the government U-turn on the £1 million inheritance tax, now taking it to 2.5 million, does this cause a problem for farmers still, or are you happy with the decision? Could you ask?
So we're always going to be asking for more. Of course we are. And I think the key thing on that is we need to remember inflation. So land prices are going to keep going up. So 5 million today might be very little tomorrow. And people might be sitting there thinking, gosh, I'd love to have 5 million. We don't have it in cash. It sits in fields, it sits in livestock, it sits in machinery. And values are going to keep going up, so it needs to focus on inflation. There will be some big farms out there, and big isn't bad. Okay, a big farm is owned by a bigger family. That's generally how it is. The bigger the farm, the bigger the family. Farms come in all shapes and sizes, and we can't have an anti-growth policy. So there's still need for change, but at the moment, it's kept the wool from the door for most people.
It would have been a hammer blow. You know, there are thousands of families across the UK with farms that are worth a lot on paper, like you were saying, but who are earning less than the minimum wage. That's scandalous. You know, they've endured cuts to their incomes while the cost of energy, fertiliser and feed bills have soared. And it was a tremendously difficult time for the farmers. While producing high quality food for our tables, they were being let down by the government by trying to impose this family farm tax. And we have to ask the question, is government support being misdirected? We need to secure better future farming support and funding.
We definitely do. It's so important that we have food out there for people in any walk of life, any income, that they can afford it, and it's safe. and it's traceable. And I do
yes.
think we underestimate how safe food that is produced in Britain is, and we should be
Yes.
so proud of that. And we need to make sure that food is available in abundance so that no one ever has to worry about that availability, regardless of your income.
Absolutely. Let's have our first track, and the first track is called Taxes on the Farmers.
Radio card right about now.
You're listening to Rebecca Bowen with Quite a Stir on Radio Cardiff 98.7 FM.
If you just joined us, we have Abby Reader, dairy farmer, in the house tonight, and we are discussing dairy farming. And that song is very poignant to what we've just discussed with the farm tax. And just to reiterate some of the lyrics there, they take them by the hand, lead them off the land, and the merchant is the one who gets it all. It's just, they really listen to the lyrics of that song. It's poignant. Over time, dairy farming has evolved from small manual local systems to highly technically based, science-based, globally connected systems. I don't want to sound like Heston Blumenthal here, but the core aim is producing milk and has stayed the same. But how has it changed? How do you feel it's changed dramatically? How has dairy farming evolved over the years in your time?
So that's a really interesting question, and I suppose as I was listening to that song, it brought back some memories of childhood. So what things have stayed the same is all of my cows are descended from my grandparents' cows.
Wow.
And that's both sets of grandparents on both sides of the family. And even to this day, some of the equipment and some of the buildings that we use are descended from those grandparents and actually generations before them. We still use barns that date back to the 1800s. We still use a lot of kit that was very well made that keeps the farm going.
Really?
But at the same time, we also embrace new technology. So all the cows these days wear, I suppose it'd be the equivalent of a Fitbit, but they all wear leg straps which monitor their activity. Yep. It's brilliant. It can measure their footsteps. So if a cow's having a bad day, so perhaps if she's out in the summer, she stepped on a stone, it might tell me that she's not walking as far as she should. Or other days it might tell me, my goodness, she's gone a long way today. Maybe she's broken out, or sometimes they can be on heat, eligible for breeding.
Okay.
We've got all sorts of things that we use in the cow world that can help us make sure the lives for those cows are really healthy and safe and fit. And yeah, it's just great. The more I learn about cows, the more I want to learn about cows.
Yeah. I was in say Fitbit. I love how you described that. The everyday consumer like myself, we see milk, cheese and butter, but we only see it at the supermarket. A lot happens before it reaches the fridge, and understanding the farm to fridge journey helps explain prices, quality, why farming practices matter, daily care, animal welfare matters, milk quality checks, farm costs, for example. What should consumers understand about the journey from farm to fridge?
So I think perhaps I'll just tell you a little bit about my day. And maybe I'll just tell you about my past 24 hours. I mean, it's been really cold, really cold, to the extent that I was in a farmer meeting last night in Brecon, and I got back home at 11 o'clock, and I dropped into the milking parlour to see what was happening. And I could see that the parlour was freezing. So at 11 o'clock last night, I was getting fuel to fill up the space heater to try and put some heating on in the milking parlour to stop it freezing. Wow. I managed to find a massive sheet to put over the parlour to try and keep the heat in. So I got to bed at about 12:30, but I was back up at 4:15 to get back down to the milking parlour to see what was happening, because I knew that the cows needed to come in for milking at 5, and if we had a problem, then I needed to try and get ahead of it. Quite a bit of the parlour had frozen. It was a nightmare morning. We managed to trundle through it. The cows were a bit grumpy, but it wasn't too bad. But, you know, when you're working in -6 conditions and a machine you expect to work isn't working very well, you know, that's not great. We had the added stress then as we were getting towards the end of milking, and milking generally takes about 3.5 hours. I was thinking, gosh, I need to feed the young calves, the baby calves, and wondering what was happening to them, and thinking I'm late because I've got parlour problems. And then someone turned up on the farm it was another farmer who'd come. They were buying some calves off me, and I'd forgotten all about it, and I didn't have the paperwork, and calves were screaming for food, and there's lots of things going on. We managed to get through it, but then I realised that their water was frozen, and that before we did anything else, we'd have to go out and get buckets and try and carry water for the young calves. The big cows were okay, and And then the day goes on. We've got the feeding and the bedding of the livestock, and then we've milking again. So I've come from the farm now, and I've left someone milking at home. When I leave here, I'll go back to that milking parlour and see whether it's going to be freezing again tonight. I don't think it is, but we're preparing for snow later in the week, and I could make that day sound really difficult. People think, why on earth would you want to do that? I love it. I love every aspect of it, and today was really, really testing. But it's just part of the job that you do, and you learn to evolve and adapt. And every time you beat that next challenge, you know that you're onto a winner, and that's what farming does. It just keeps you going, and it's the cows that keep you going, because they don't give you a minute to feel sorry about yourself. They get really grumpy with you, and I love that. It doesn't give you time to stop and think. You just have to keep going, and it's a brilliant job for people who like the outdoors. It's brilliant.
That's resilience. Farmers are resilient, especially in stressful times.
Yeah. Someone gave me the phrase the other day when we were talking about inheritance tax.
Oh, yeah.
They said, we never thought we'd get a win, and at times I thought we were flogging a dead horse. That's what this farmer said to me. And I can remember a story where I had a cow that was ill. And I can't remember what it was, but she was choking, and she effectively died in front of me. And I remember looking at her thinking, you are not going to die today.
Yeah.
So I thought, right, I'm going to do CPR on this cow. And how do you do CPR on something that's nearly a ton? And I braced myself against a stone wall, and I launched myself at that cow with both feet and tried to thump her in the chest. And I did that 4 times, a bit like a heart start. And after the 4th time, I suddenly heard,
oh, wow.
And she sucked in this massive breath. And back she came. So don't anyone say you can't flog a dead horse. You can.
Nice. Yeah, you've got the proof there. And let's talk about collection and transport. Milk is collected 24 to 48 hours by refrigerated tankers. It must be kept cold at all times to stay safe. Each load is tested again before being accepted, and if the milk fails the quality test, it can be rejected and the farmer may not get paid.
That's right. So, I mean, it's a really good thing to point out to people as well is cows have to want to give you the milk. So if they don't want to give you the milk, if they don't like you, if you frighten them or you've upset them, they won't give you any milk. Right. So as a farmer, that's number one. They have to want to come into the milking parlour. You are not going to be able to move a 900 kilo cow or an 800 kilo cow. They need to want to come in. So they have to trust you. It takes about 7 minutes to milk a cow out.
Wow.
When that milk comes out, it is blood temperature, so it's about 38 degrees C.
Okay.
We need to store it up below 5 degrees C.
Yes.
If we don't, then the milk company can refuse to pick it up. It's really important for keeping that milk, keeping the shelf life and keeping it safe and healthy. So that's fine. Everybody make sure they keep their machinery maintained, and unless you've got a major problem, which could be with the national grid, that's not a problem. Milk quality is always monitored. We make sure that we've got good levels of protein. We talk about butter fat a lot. That's everything that goes into your butter and your cheese and your ice cream. It's really valuable. So make sure we monitor that. We also look at how clean we've been as a farmer, and you could be fined if you have not been clean. In the milking parlour, we have to remember that although we're dealing with cows, we're actually dealing with a food product. So it's really important you do that. And as farmers, we do lots of training. I will train probably at least 1 day a month, sometimes more than that. Sometimes it's going to another farm. It might be going to hear a speaker. It might be online. But we're always training and trying to improve.
Evolving. Wow. Yeah. You do an awful lot. I watch you on Instagram, and I'm so impressed and very intimidated. As I've said, you put such a graft in, but you love it. Yeah.
I found my passion.
You found your passion.
Growing up as a child, I felt like the odd one out because I was the only farm kid in the school, and to suddenly go to university and learn about farming and meet a farming community that I knew I was a part of. I just love it.
Oh, amazing. And your sister's a vet as well. So
she is a vet.
Family,
yeah. So she's a small animal vet.
Yeah.
So she looks after the dogs that we keep on the farm as well.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, she lives and works in Cardiff, and still a massive part of the family.
Yeah, amazing. Let's have our next track. It is What's Going On by Marvin Gaye.
And whether you're young or whether you're old, you gotta come down and let Radio Cardiff rock your soul. I'm 98.7 FM. Ranga, tell your friend, tell your friend, tell your friend. Tell your friend.
You're listening to Rebecca Bowen with Quite a Stir on Radio Cardiff 98.7 FM.
Welcome back to the show. I'm just going to dive straight in with the questions. Farm incomes dropped sharply, with dairy in particular seeing very large declines. This makes it harder for farmers to invest, plan and pass farms on to the next generation. No one inherits enthusiasm if they inherit debt and uncertainty. And the rural policy development issues. National Park proposal. The Union has raised practical and infrastructural concerns about proposed new national park destinations, arguing that they may restrict farm access and create anxiety for farms and farm families. What are NFU Cymru's biggest concerns on goals right now?
Yeah, so if we look at, the issue, we know that the Welsh Government has announced it like another national park, and certainly there's a lot of plans in it, and clearly there are a lot of pros to it. But we need to remember the cons as well, and the impact that it could have on the people that live in that area, not just the farmers, but communities as a whole, and it can change the landscape, can bring a lot of people to an area suddenly in tourism that could have huge issues. We've got similar issues then with pylons and solar panels and wind turbines, and there really is a need for Wales as a whole to develop a policy. What really does it want? And if we're asking rural communities to shoulder the burden for supplying energy for cities, then we at least need to be able to supply energy for those rural communities at the same time, and make sure that they're not treated unfairly. So NFU Cymru is really keen on making sure that the farmer's voice is heard, or that rural voice is heard in the Senedd or in Westminster or wherever it may be, because there aren't that many of us, and sometimes it can be overlooked, so we need to make sure that we're always shouting that corner. If we're looking at volatile prices for food, it is really volatile. Food is we keep using this phrase, it's a global commodity, but basically if, let's say, America is having a really good year producing milk, that could be bad for dairy farmers in Britain, because there's an oversupply and it pushes the price down. If we get a geopolitical disaster, then that could have an impact. The weather, I think, is our biggest enemy at the moment. Freezing temperatures, but we only have to look back to last summer. Spain was burning.
Yes,
burning up. So we need to remember we're an island. And we need to produce as much food as we can, because we don't know what's going to happen in other countries. We can only look after ourselves. Yeah.
And specialist cheeses, dairy ingredients reach global markets. Welsh food proudly competes on a brand, trust and standards rather than scale. It's quality versus quantity. In international debates about climate, food systems and sustainability, Wales is often cited as an example of how marginal land can still produce food responsibly, something many parts of the world simply cannot do. What role does Welsh produce play on a global scale?
So it's really interesting, isn't it? 80% of the farmland in Wales, which is 80% of the land area, I guess, in Wales, is what we call LFA, so it's less favoured area. It is that marginal land. It's not the lush green or really valuable cropslands that you might find perhaps in England or elsewhere on mainland Europe. And yet we punch way above our weight. So Welsh lamb and Welsh beef, world renowned. It's PGI status, world renowned. But if we're focusing on dairy, listeners might be interested to hear that dairy's the most valuable food commodity that comes out of Wales, value-wise. If we're talking about comparing dairy and meat and crops, dairy brings in the most value. 50% of the milk that we produce goes into your bottled milk, but the remaining 50% goes into cheese, and a lot of that is mozzarella, and it is shipped all over the world. Hong Kong, fantastic market. We've got better access now in the US. People love our cheeses, and we should be so proud of that.
Absolutely, I love them too. What's your favourite?
My favourite is, I do like a blue cheese.
Yeah?
Like I've just finished, I bought some Tyvee cheese before Christmas at the Winter Fair, and nice. It's really good.
The engineer favours a blue cheese. I prefer the more fruity kinds, the cranberry, the apricot. I love those. The smoked cheeses. And what's the other one? There's one more. Caerphilly cheese I like, actually.
Yeah, Caerphilly's good.
Cheese, The youth of today are an innovative bunch. Inspiration dies quickly if access is impossible. Land prices, capital costs, lack of tenancy opportunities, inheritance uncertainty. How do you inspire the next generation of farmers? Do we modernise the image of farming, celebrating farmers as managers, scientists, business leaders? Because that's what you are really, not just producers.
Yes, this is a really important question. And at NFU Cymru, we deal with some very heavy issues, inheritance tax being one of them. Young people don't want to hear those things. No. They want to be inspired about what they can do. Yeah. And actually, young people that are going into not just farming, but the food industry as a whole, are going to be some of the most important people that we have on this planet in the next few years. We have got to feed over 9 billion people by 2050.
Wow.
And we haven't got any more land to do it. And we've got increasing asks from various governments, including Welsh Government, about doing more for nature at the same time and doing more for climate. So somehow we've got to strike that balance, and it's going to need the very best and brightest people to do it. And when I say the best and the brightest, I don't mean you have to be academically bright. Actually, what's amazing about farming is there's room for everybody. It needs the most passionate people. It doesn't matter if you struggle with dyslexia or you've got ADHD or whatever, whoever you are. Farming doesn't care about those things. It cares about whether you can get up to an alarm clock in the morning and walk out the door regardless of the weather and do the job. And for people who embrace that, it's really good. And there's a fantastic story on my farm 2 years ago. 16-year-old called Alicia turned up on my doorstep. It was 8 o'clock in the evening on a Saturday, and I just finished milking and I was really tired, and I didn't really want to speak to anybody, but there was this person. She turned up with her mum in the car, and she said, "My name's Alicia, I'm from the middle of Cardiff and I really want to be a farmer. Can you help me?"
Wow.
And I looked at this kid and I thought, I really don't have time. And I just said, "Look, you come back now tomorrow morning at 6 and we'll see what we can do." And I thought I would never see her again. 10 to 6 the following morning, she was on the farm. By midday, she had milked the cows, fed the calves, scraped the yards, done all of these jobs, and she's been with me ever since. She didn't do her A-levels, but she went to agricultural college and she's done a course there, and I've offered her a full-time job, which is hers if she wants it, and I think she does, coming up in May now when she finishes at college. People from any walk of life can walk into agriculture. It is tough. There's no denying it. If you're from outside farming and you're trying to get access to land, it's tough. But if you want it, you can be like Alicia and you can get it.
Nice, great. Love that success story. And we were talking earlier about the difference in another member of your staff. She was an opera singer and she just walked into the farming world.
That's it. Yeah, she did. Louise worked for opera singing with the Welsh National Opera, and just one day wanted a career change, and she literally walked onto the farm and that was it. I've got 2 other people, Matt and Julia, who I got to know during COVID. They live in Barry and just started walking through the farm during COVID, as a lot of people did, and it was a great time actually for farmers to meet the community, because they all came out and they all had time. It was, it's gone again now, but it was lovely. And Matt and Julia came every day to see the calves, a couple, and I just said one day, "Would you like to help me feeding?" And they have been with me ever since as well. In fact, I've left them at home feeding the calves tonight. So, I'm really, really lucky with the people that we get on our farm, and I'm sure plenty of other farmers would say the same. So if you want to get into farming, it doesn't matter what age, what your ability, if you're keen, there's a space for you.
Absolutely, because there's a misconception you have to come from this agricultural background, you have to be born with it, you have to come from generational.
Yeah, please don't. And there's many routes in, apprenticeships, or you could go to college, or you could do none of those things. You could just go straight on a farm, or you could do some sort of hybrid. There's all sorts of courses that we can help you go on to upskill, and please do get involved.
That's amazing. And well done for helping all these people and giving them a passion. Absolutely loving that. Let's have a third track. This one's Simple Minds, Don't You Forget About Me.
Radio Cardiff, bringing the house down.
You're listening to Rebecca Bowen with Quite a Stir on Radio Cardiff 98.7 FM.
Welcome back to the show. We are joined with Abby Reader, and I'm loving every minute of the show. Thank you so much. What I find really interesting is the young farmers movement. We were talking about young people coming into the industry, maybe not even having the background that you have, obviously coming down from generations. but it's open to everyone, isn't it? So if you could tell us about the Young Farmers movement.
Yeah, so we've got YFC clubs, Young Farmers Clubs, all around Wales and actually all around the UK, and they are actually all around the world as well, and there are international engagements. But if we talk about a Young Farmers Club, it is not just for young farmers. In fact, when I was in YFC, my local YFC is Maindy YFC, based in Glamorgan. There weren't many of us who were from farming backgrounds, plenty of people who are from rural communities, but it's open to anyone, and we have a lot of fun, basically. It's a fun club, and it teaches young people skills. So particularly in Wales, we're very interested in giving people public speaking skills. So we do a lot of debating.
Excellent.
We do something called Just a Minute, which is hilarious, and you have to talk about a topic for as long as you can for an entire minute, and if you drop out, then someone else will drop in, and it's the last person standing who wins them. But there's all sorts of brilliant competitions we do. We do a drama competition every year, and it's done to a very professional level, and there's quite a lot of money that goes into building sets and getting the dress
And the
dress wear
props
for
then,
everybody. And it's an amazing competition, and we have heats in Wales within our counties, and then we go national in Wales, and then we'll compete against England, and it's brilliant. So for young people who would like to connect more with rural communities, who perhaps are living in the middle of Cardiff and thinking I may not be welcome there, you'd absolutely be welcome, and you go and have fun. And no one is judging you on what you do or don't know. They're just welcoming you into our family.
Because they all want to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think learning to speak publicly is a great life skill as well. Because some people find it really difficult.
Yeah, so I did debating in YFC, and I was one of the most nervous debaters ever.
Yeah.
But I learned so many skills. And those skills, you think, oh, what am I going to do with that? You take that into a lot of businesses.
Confidence.
Yeah.
Confidence is key in anything, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. Also, we've talked about cows on tour.
Yeah, so Cows on Tour. So, I mean, still keeping on the theme of young people, but I think this time, rather than looking at how we welcome young people to come and work in our industry, Cows on Tour was more about trying to tell people about the story of food. And actually, it was developed, I say developed, that makes it sound really technical. But back in, I think it was 2013, a farmer's son who was based up in London, working in London, had connected with a head teacher, and she'd invited him to go along and speak to his school about food and farming, and he rang me out of the blue and said, I'm going to do this, can I borrow some props, can you give me some ideas, because I was doing a few things back in Cardiff at the time, and I said, you know what, I'll come up and give you a hand. Before I knew it, a lot of the community said, well, actually, we'll come with you, and very early in January I'm sure it was 2013, probably at about 3:00 in the morning, 16 farmers left Wales.
Wow.
And headed to London to team up with this farmer's son. And we spent the entire day in a very inner city school in London, and actually it was in a really deprived area. And I can remember speaking to the head teacher, and she said to me, there's a lot of children here who've got some very difficult backgrounds, really difficult, and it's nice for them to come to school and have some normality. And we got to the end of the day, we spent a full day there, and we had absolutely no idea what we were doing, but we just spoke to them about who we were and tried to make it fun. And we'd been given lots of gifts of food from people that we deal with in the industry, so machinery dealers or my milk buyer, they sent milkshakes. Loads of people sent gifts, and we took our own food as well. And I said to the teacher at the end of the day, I don't really want to take all of this food home. Can I leave it here? Maybe the teachers would like it. And the head teacher said to me, there's a room in the corner of that playground over there, and if you go and put that food there, she said, a lot of these children will go home tonight and they may not have any tea because their families are struggling to afford it. And she said they may not see much food until the following day when they go back to school. So she said, if you put that food over there, then they can have it. We put everything in that room, including the lunch that we hadn't had time to eat. And within 5 minutes, it was gone. And it was the most humbling reminder of why it is so important that as farmers, we continue to produce food and make it available for people. And we make sure it's available in abundance, it's affordable, and it's safe. Because those people don't have an opportunity to decide on whether they can buy the finest or whatever the top brands. They just need safe food that they can give to their kids, and From that, Cows on Tour developed. We went back again to the London School a year later, but then we started doing schools around Wales.
Wow.
And we did a roadshow. I became obsessed. I was like, right, let's do this. We'll tour around Wales now, and we'll do 7 days, and we'll do a roadshow. And we by this time we'd branded ourselves as Cows on Tour, and the reason we gave ourselves that name is because I'd made 2 wooden milking cows which I kept at home, and we took them up to London with us. So someone said, oh, it's Cows on Tour, and that's really how it started. But actually we needed lots of volunteers to help us go around Wales.
Okay.
So we had to make our brand become known so that people would be loyal. So we had 3 launch events. Launch number 1, and this was now looking in 2019, this is when we did it. And the reason we did 3 launch events is because we said, well, what if we do our tour and we go around Wales and we want to speak to all of these schools, but we're relying on local volunteers? What if nobody comes? What do we do then? And someone said to me, Airbnb, that really well-known business that we all deal with, that failed 3 times before it became the success that it is.
Really?
So we decided as Cows on Tour, we would set ourselves up to fail 3 times.
3 times
And then we would go to the real launch. So launch number, they were basically publicity stunts. So launch number 1, which was on the 1st of March, St. David's Day, we teamed up with Danorogoff Show Caves.
Oh, okay.
And we took, by this time we had an entire life-size fiberglass farm.
Wow.
We took the entire farm down into the caves in Danorogoff Show Caves, and we cooked Welsh beef, Welsh lamb burgers, and gave out samples of milk and cheese, Welsh milk and cheese. So that was our launch number 1. Launch number 2 then we did on the 1st of April. This one's a brilliant one. So I had the opportunity to meet the guy from Zip World, the guy who founded Zip World, and they've got the fastest and longest zip line in North Wales. And I said to him, well, I've got a life-size fiberglass cow, and I would love to put that cow down your zip line. And I really want to do it on the 1st of April, April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
And he said to me, no problem. He said, here's the number, phone up Zip World, and we'll sort it out for you. And so fine, we got to a couple of days before April the 1st, and I loaded this cow onto a friend's egg van from Newport, a Country Fresh Eggs, and they took it all the way up to North Wales and dropped it off. And my phone was ringing. And it was Zip World on the phone, and they said, we thought you were joking. And I was like, no, I'm not joking. I really want you to put this cow down the zip line. And they did it for me.
They did it.
On the 1st of April. So that was brilliant. So that was launch number 2. Launch number 3 was on the 4th of May, which for a lot of Star Wars fans is May the Force be with you. But this was May the Farm be with you. And we carried the entire life-size fiberglass farm up to the top of Snowdon.
Oh, wow.
So life-size cow, pig, sheep, chicken, leek, potato, blah. And we were relying on volunteers to do that. And we needed, we just, I don't actually know how we got away with it, but we basically said, right, we're going on the 4th of May. We need people to help us. Someone has offered us a campground for free. We'll see you there. And that was it. So we turned up with no plan whatsoever, or no idea who was going to come.
No.
And we were quite tired when we got up there. We were a core team of 8. So we just arrived at the fiberglass farm, set up our tents. I hate camping. Camped overnight, and there was a little bit of snow, so that was really quite chilly as well. And in the morning, I looked out of the tent, and there were tents all around us. 75 people had turned up from across Wales to help us carry these animals up Snowdon. And we were doing it all for charity. We raised, amongst other things, we raised around £20,000 for a rural mental health charity. And we carried these animals up Snowdon. We set them all out at the top. And then we did our roadshow, which was in May, later on in May. And we visited, I think it was 8 schools in total. We had over 300 volunteers who came to, in different sizes, but came to the different locations. And we spent the time talking about food and farming and trying to help people understand everything that is amazing about the industry. And it was an amazing thing to do.
Great approach. I love that marketing skills there. Have you got any pictures of the cow going down the zip line? Because I'd love to see that.
I'll have to share the video with you. She got stuck partway down, and they had to winch out and get her because she was fiberglass. She was quite heavy, but actually she wasn't very aerodynamic. So
I can't imagine how actually carrying the life-size Up Snowdon.
Yeah.
That must have been.
Yeah,
Were
it
these
was
people,
absolutely
the
brilliant.
volunteers, were they mountain climbers, or were they just average volunteers?
They were mostly farmers and
Okay.
people from the food world.
So outdoorsy anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what was the other thing? Dairy farming abroad. Talking
Yeah.
about the differences abroad.
Yeah, so it was a fascinating one. I had the opportunity to go to Hawaii a few years ago. And Hawaii is an island like we are, but obviously a bit smaller, and there's quite a few of them. And I was fascinated to try and work out whether they had a dairy industry, and it turns out they don't. So you think how far they live off mainland USA. To be able to, they have to ship a lot of their food in. And dairy in particular, I mean, it's very difficult. You've got to take it over either on a boat or a plane. It's got to be refrigerated.
And the climate is spoiling
yeah.
everything.
And I was really fascinated to see that Hawaii went through this whole research process of whether they wanted a dairy farm in Hawaii. And they decided that maybe they would. I don't actually know whether they went through with it. I should look that up. But what was interesting was the debate people had on, well, okay, we need a dairy farm. We need to supply our islands. But how big do we want this dairy farm to be? And they went through this whole debate about how big was too big and how small was too small. And they settled on, they thought they could have a herd of 600 cows. They felt that, they didn't want it to get any bigger than that, but that was an appropriate size for them. And it was just really interesting to see how a country that had never had a dairy industry before was going to develop that. And then I've also had the opportunity to see some dairy herds in the USA.
Okay.
And some of those dairy herds can be absolutely enormous. I mean, they can be 10,000 cows. And sometimes you can fall into the trap again of, small is lovely and big is bad. Or you might say small is really inefficient and big is really low cost and really high tech. Actually, different sizes do all sorts of different things. You could be small and really high tech and really, really efficient, and you could be the same if you're big. But I guess what's interesting with America is they're just feeding such a massive population. It's massive, and they do have the ability out there to be really large scale and do all of those things. And they could, just to spend $1 million on a farm is nothing over there, whereas over here it's quite considerable amount of money. So it's not saying that any one system is good or bad. We're just different. But what we do need to remember when we talk about our own farming in this country is we have a very high set of standards that we all adhere to. Whether that is for animal welfare, and actually we are world leaders in animal welfare.
It's the key difference, isn't it? Yeah.
Looking after the environment, these are standards that we set here in the UK. They're set, to what we would expect. So if we are going to open our borders up to food coming in, then at the very least it needs to hit those standards, because otherwise we're going to price ourselves out of the market, and we could have the best food in the world, but are people going to buy it? And we hammer the supermarkets a lot, but we forget a lot about food service. And what are the coffee chains doing? What are the hotel chains doing? What are all those people in the background? What are they doing when they're thinking about buying in their food? And do they think enough about it?
Yeah. Do they think about it all?
Yeah, all sorts.
I've loved every minute of this show. Thank you so much, Abby Reader, for joining us tonight. It's been an eye-opener to the real food system and the people behind it. And I have been very intimidated, I will admit that.
It's been an absolute honour to be on the show. Really has been.
Thank you so much. I will upload the show and send it over to you, and you can let your family and friends listen to it. But I watch your Instas, I watch the graft you put in, I watch you fight politicians, and I'm so impressed by you. So I have to applaud you. Abby Reader of NFU Cymru Dairy Farmer. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Shout out NFU, and of course my brother works for them, so we love NFU Cymru. We're going to leave you with 4-Act Riot, their debut hit, and it's Insecure.
Radio Card